Video bites from ulearn.photography. Here's our principal, Simon Q. Walden.
Hey up, and welcome to another video bite where we're going to be talking about crop frames versus full frames, and should you trade up from a crop frame to a full frame. Well, I'm kind of using loaded language there. So first of all, let's just talk about what the difference is. So cameras inside here, there is a sensor. On some cameras, that sensor is described as full frame, which means that the sensor is the same size as the old traditional 35mm film format. And on many cameras these days, it's actually a reduced size. It's not the same size as 35mm. And what that does is it means on a standard lens, effectively it's cropping into the center of the picture. And that does two things. First of all, as I say, it gives you that crop, and it has the effect, it's not the same as the reality, but it has the effect of making your lens function as a longer focal length. So, let's just talk about those two things. What's the benefit of each process? Well, the benefit of the full frame is because your lens is working at its true length, then your control of depth of field and indeed just the ability to capture depth of field is so much better. You will get a much more obvious bokeh from out of focus areas. Your management of depth of field will be so much better. And it certainly used to be the case that just technically you got a better quality capture from that larger sensor. And I think that boundary is getting narrower and narrower all the time now. Crop frame sensors are also pretty darn good, and in either case, both sets of sensors, crop frame or full frame, are typically capturing far more image quality than we actually use in our finished products anyway. So what are the benefits of a crop frame? Well, actually, for some people, the benefit of that extended effective lens, effective focal length, is a benefit in its own right. There's a lot to be said for that, you can treat a 50mm lens as an 85mm lens. That's what I do, for example, for my portrait work. I use my 50mm wide aperture lens as an effective 85mm lens. Also, strangely, it lets you use lesser quality kit because, okay, so in a cheaper lens, what happens is the very edges of the frame tend to be the areas that suffer most on a cheap lens. Now, because the crop frame actually crops out all of the edges of the frame, what you're left with is the sweet spot in the middle of the lens anyway. So actually you can get a benefit that way. Broadly speaking now, that I would say trade up is an interesting phrase in its own right. It is a kind of a bit of a loaded one. Your full frame camera will be more expensive, but actually for most shooting purposes, you're not going to see a particular benefit from it. If you are more serious about your hobby or you're a professional, I think at the moment you still need to stick full frame. But I'm prepared to change my mind in the next 12 months because I think sensor technology, the new format cameras, the mirrorless cameras, could give us quite a big sea change in that whole area.
Subscribe now for regular tips and updates. To find out more, go to ulearn.photography.